members from the Upper Avon Valley who were invited to attend today's meeting. Can I please remind you all to switch your phone to silent for the duration of the meeting? In addition, can I refer you to the protocol for remote meetings which have been previously circulated? Namely, your microphone should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either by the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams? I will assume that you have all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand function or to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, can you please indicate which page number you are referring to? Okay, the first item on the agenda is to do a roll call. I am Councillor Saifur Rahman, the chair, and I am present. I will now call on Chloe, the Democratic Service Officer, to take the roll call. Over to you, Chloe.
Thank you, Chair. I've marked you as present. Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Wyndham Griffiths.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Steve Hunt.
I'm here, Chloe.
Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Simon Noyle.
I'm here, thanks, Chloe.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Present, Chloe, present.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Rydian Maisen.
Yes, present, Chloe.
Councillor Suzanne Paddison.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Nat Purcell. Councillor Sheila Penry.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Rachel Taylor. Councillor Rachel
Present,
Taylor.
Chloe.
Thank you. Councillor Aaron Wilcock.
Present, all present.
I made a quick note of the Regeneration and Sustainable Development members that I've seen on the attendance day. So Councillor Hugh James.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Sean Percy.
Present.
Are there any other members on the call today from that scrutiny committee that I haven't called? No? Okay. On to the education members. I've also made a note of the ones that I've seen on the attendance. Councillor Suzanne Renkes.
Present.
Councillor Dave Whitelock.
Present, thank you, Chloe.
Councillor Rob Wood.
Present.
Co-opted member Marie Caddick. Marie Caddick? No.
She's not in the call at the moment, Chloe. We're just trying to get her in.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Is there any other member from the Education Scrutiny Committee that I've missed?
Yes, myself, Chloe, Joe Hill.
Okay, thank you. And then the local members then, Councillor Scott Jones.
Present.
And Councillor Nicola Davis. Councillor Nicola Davis. And then Cabinet members, Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Chloe.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Mike Harvey.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Doreen Jones.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Zoe.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Present.
Councillor Peter Richards.
Present, Chloe.
And Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Present, Chloe.
Officers Karen Jones.
Present.
Howell Jenkins.
Present.
Andrew Thomas.
Present.
Andrew Jarrett.
Present.
Pierce.
Present.
Hugh Jones.
Present.
Mike Shaw.
Present.
Simon Brennan.
Present, Chloe.
Dave Griffiths.
Present, Chloe.
Kerry Morris.
Present, Chloe.
Aaron Furlow Harris.
Present, Chloe.
Linda.
Present.
Paul Walker.
Present, Chloe.
Paul Durrell.
Present.
Jane Lewis from Carmarthenshire.
Present, Chloe.
And Jane Woodman Ralph.
Present, Chloe.
Have I missed any officers who participated in today's meeting? Nope, I think that's the roll call done then, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Chair's announcement
Sorry,
then.
Chloe,
Next.
I've just come in late.
Sorry,
Is-
who's this?
Who's that?
Councillor Nicola
Nicola
Davis.
Davis.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I'll add you to the attendance.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's fine. Okay, the next item is Chair's announcement. We have chosen to scrutinize items 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, item 11, item 12, and item 13 on the Cabinet agenda. There are 3 items on the Cabinet Finance Subcommittee agenda. However, we have chosen not to scrutinize these items as we are happy with the recommendation contained within the report. Can I now bring in Hugh Jones, Head of Finance, in relation to the Audit Wales review of the Corporate Performance Management System report, as it has been highlighted that the report currently does not contain detail of the implementation of decision.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to inform members that unfortunately the implementation decision is missing from the report, so it needs to include for implementation after the 3-day call-in period, please, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Right, next item is declaration of interest. I myself would like to declare a personal interest on item number 5 on the Cabinet agenda, the Swansea Bay City Deal Skills and Talent Programme. I will be sitting on the Swansea Bay City Deal Joint Scrutiny Committee. Can I ask members, do you have any declaration of interest to make at today's meeting? Sharon?
I have. I want to declare a personal interest in Agenda 5. I sit on the Swansea Bay City Deal Board.
Thank you, Sharon. Alan?
Yes, similar, Chair. I sit on the Swansea Bay Joint Scrutiny Committee as well.
Thank you, Alan. Any other members wish to declare an interest on any items on the both Cabinet Scrutiny agenda or the Cabinet agenda? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you. Moving on then, pre-decision scrutiny. Now, if I could take you to the Cabinet papers. And the first item, we are to scrutinize the item 5 on the Cabinet paper, the Swansea Bay City Deal Skills and Talent Programme. And these are on pages 3 to 130. I believe Nicola PS is Nicola, are you in the meeting?
I am in the meeting,
Right.
Chair. Our colleague from Carmarthenshire, who is the Senior Responsible Officer on this particular project, which is Jane Lewis, she will be giving a presentation, and then she will be able to answer any questions that members may have following that presentation. So if you would like, Chair, we'll introduce Jane.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Jane. Are you happy to give your presentation?
Yes, good afternoon, members. I'd like, if I could share my screen, if somebody could indicate when you could see it, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I can see you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for allowing me to give you the presentation on the Skills and Talent Programme for the Swansea Bay City Deal. Firstly, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership, the organisation that's leading on the Skills and Talent Programme. We've been in existence since 2010 and have experience of working with employers and training providers in the region to identify skills gaps and working together to address the skills needs in the region. We're an independent organisation funded by Welsh Government, and we're led by the private sector, and we work with 9 sector cluster groups and over 2,000 businesses across the region. We publish an annual employment and skills plan that sets out priority areas and is used by Welsh Government to determine where funding for further education and work-based learning should be allocated. We also publish sector-specific reports on skills. An example of this, a recent report was the Tidal Lagoon report, and we're leading on the Skills and Talent Programme for the City Deal. So what is the programme about? On the screen, you'll see the vision for the programme. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to harness the skills requirements of the City Deal project and the wider regional needs. The Skills and Talent Programme aims to create new and sustainable opportunities to upskill and create a skills pathway for all that will reduce the number of economically inactive, increase the number of people with higher than level 2 qualifications, and create opportunities to increase the number of people with higher level skills, thereby generating prosperity for individuals and businesses across the region. The 5 key areas will be construction, digital, smart manufacturing, health and well-being, and energy. The programme is an integral part of the City Deal portfolio, bringing together the development of skills that will be required by all of the projects within the portfolio and maximising the potential to support the economy. So why do we need this programme? We know from evidence given to us by employers and potential investors in the region that we do not have the skills base here to meet the demand of employers and investors,
Yes.
particularly in the digital and engineering sectors.
Thank you very much.
But the issue with skills is far wider in our region. Compared to Wales, we have a higher percentage of people in parts of the region with no qualifications, and some areas in the region have a lower than average number of people qualified below level 2. On the other side, we also have a lower than average level of people qualified at levels 7 to 8 in some parts of the region. The Skills and Talent Programme therefore cannot just be about creating more levels 6 to 8, but about bringing opportunities for everybody to get a qualification that will enable them to earn higher salaries. This programme cannot resolve all of the problems in relation to skilled individuals, but by working together with stakeholders and employers, we can move further forward, reducing that gap between the people with no skills and the people with higher level skills. So what do we aim to deliver? 14,000 individuals with higher levels 2 to 8 skills in 10 years. 3,000 new apprenticeships between level 3 to degree through the City Deal projects. Develop that all-important career pathway, working with schools and the new curriculum, increasing the number of students taking STEM subjects in college and universities. Deliver 20 new updated course frameworks that meet industry needs for the future to replace outdated information contained within frameworks. And create at least 2 centres of excellence within specific sectors to develop the region as being the best area for skills development. These centres won't be bricks and mortar, won't be one venue, but a cluster of expertise in a given industry sector. And upskilling will be key to ensuring that we can deliver the projects that make up the City Deal. So how will we achieve this? The programme is about developing those with skills and developing skills that we don't even know about yet. It will not be about doing more of the same, and these will be pilot projects for new skills not delivered here currently and will not duplicate existing provision. We want to create that legacy for the region by developing the right skills, working with schools, colleges, universities and training providers to develop the awareness of what skills requirements be in the future and how these will significantly change during the lifetime of our pupils who are starting out in schools now. So we need initially to complete a skills gap analysis. We've already completed an analysis of what's being delivered in the region to date, and we've been working with the projects to identify what skills they anticipate that they will require during the lifetime of the programme. We'll publish a skills barometer to provide a better understanding of the skills needs and to inform the changes that need to be introduced and identify new frameworks and training provision. We'll develop specialist pilot projects to upskill people early. These will be undertaken bilingually, utilising new ways of learning, at the same time developing courses for the future, upskilling teachers and lecturers in the new skills. We'll work with schools and the new curriculum, highlighting opportunities that the City Deal will create and the career pathways open to them, particularly if they follow STEM subjects. And we'll identify the opportunities to create those centres of excellence, not duplicating what's already been started, but by working together. So our stakeholders, we have a wide range of stakeholders who we've worked with throughout the development of the business case. and these include the City Deal projects, the colleges and universities in our region, the National Training Federation for Wales and the private training providers, local authority education and regeneration departments, school leaders across the region, and we've worked with over 300 schools to date to highlight opportunities around the City Deal projects, and the 9 industry sector cluster groups with connections to over 2,000 businesses. So what are the risks? Delay in approval will impact on the delivery of training and could result in the slippage that would impact the whole programme, including the City Deal programmes. Lack of resources to deliver the programme could result in the skills training not being delivered in time and workforce being brought in from outside of the region to undertake the City Deal projects. Businesses becoming disengaged because of the length of time. Failure to increase the number of skilled individuals. Training providers becoming disengaged and not adapting to delivering the necessary skills. And the failure to achieve the legacy of sustainable skills and employment. So the funding of the programme, the total package is £30 million with £10 million from the City Deal that will be utilised to employ the programme team over the next 5 years. £8 million to identify the fund to fund the pilot projects to upskill and train individuals. £500,000 to work with schools and develop those career pathways, and £500,000 to develop those centres of excellence. We also require the £16 million of public match funding, which will be in-kind contributions from the training providers, and we've already secured significant amount of this match funding during the development of the business case. There'll also be match funding towards the overall cost of the pilot projects developed, and match funding in kind for use of facilities and equipment to deliver training. There'll also be £4 million of private sector investment that will come from the 3,000 apprenticeships created as part of the programme. So where are we now? I'm putting the business case in front of you today for consideration and approval by Cabinet of Neath Talbot Council. And this has already been done by Pembroke County Council and will be followed up by the Carmarthenshire and Swansea councils later on in July. We're also advertising at risk currently the programme manager position. We've held a policy workshop with UK and Welsh Government on the 11th of May, and we're doing a presentation to the UK Minister on the 7th of July about the programme. Last week we had a Gateway Zero review on the programme, and I was pleased that we received a Green Delivery Confidence Assessment indicating that the programme is ready to go. We're going to submit the business case subject to all of the above being approved to the Joint Committee at the end of July for approval before finally submitting the business case to Welsh and UK Government for consideration and approval. Thank you very much, and I would welcome any questions. I'll now unshare my screen.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Thank you for the presentation. There are questions on this particular report. At the pre-briefing, there are a number of members indicated that they wish to ask question. Can I just request members that to keep your question in line, keep your question as direct as possible and relevant to the detail of the report. Can I call up Councillor Steve Hunt first, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jane, for that report, that positive report. Can I just, it's like 2 parts to my question, but I think it sort of summarises some of the same issues that I'm going to identify. I'm certainly behind this programme and will be voting with it today, Jane, just for you to know. But I just wanted the Skills and Talent programme from the City Deal. Obviously, I said is welcome, and there's a lot of positivity in the report. But on page 13, where it mentions the digital infrastructure, can I ask, where do you see or envisage the benefits to the Valley communities as for jobs and retraining purposes laid out in the report? For instance, and I'm going to give you a little example, I've been trying unsuccessfully to bring connectivity to my own village for many years. So we need the new digital connectivity mentioned to meet all the regional needs. It needs to be inclusive for rural and valley communities. I have a resident here who's telling me she has to give up her job, a £25,000 a year job she loves, because connectivity issues as to fulfill her job description are not available. Now, COVID-19 changed the workplace, as we all know. Working from home will become essential for many people and businesses. You mentioned economically and inactive. I wonder if we got a map of Neath Talbot Council as to where there could be targeted areas to support young people. So the report mentions the Skills and Talent programme will be supporting training opportunities also across the whole region. How would this work once more in the valley communities with the apprenticeship programmes, which again is very much welcome, but has a similar theme as I've just mentioned, with a new way of working and the poor transport system we currently have? Would the young people living in these particular wards have the confidence to apply for these positions? And how would the employees possibly react to where they live? It could possibly leave these young people at a disadvantage to begin with. So I'm wondering if the city deal would address these problems as to give confidence to our young people in such areas, or otherwise the scheme could potentially impact on specific groups of young people and fall short of the Equality Act 2010. So I'm looking for assurances or what you can give me today. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Steve. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Yes, the Skills and Talent programme will work alongside the Digital Infrastructure project, which again is a regional project. And the aim of that project is to ensure that there is maximum connectivity throughout the whole region. The Skills and Talent programme understands the need for good connectivity, particularly in this very challenging time of delivering training online. And the connectivity is particularly important to ensure that people can also work from home and keep people safe. So whilst our programme isn't dealing directly with connectivity, we will be working very closely with the Digital Infrastructure project, which is part of the City Deal programme. On the second part of your question, Councillor, the programme is here to support people to get into work or apprenticeship from all areas of the region, and we will be working with all of the employability programmes that currently operate or will in the future operate in our region to make sure that we have as much knowledge as we can gather about people who require training, where we can support people into work as possible, and obviously work together to deliver that training. And whilst it is a difficult time for apprentices working from home, we hope that as the programme develops, there will be an easing of restrictions and people will be able to go back into the routine of training and having that work experience, which is something that apprentices are really missing at the moment. In relation to the point that you make regarding poor transport links and people getting to the place of work, a separate programme called the Earth programme, which isn't part of the City Deal, but has come out of the areas identified, particularly around planning and transport. And that will be looking at transport systems on a regional basis and how the 4 local authorities can work together to ensure that the main areas of employment are accessible to all. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Hunt.
You're on mute, Chair.
Sorry. Can I, thank you, Jane. Can I call up Nicola PS?
Thanks, Jane. That was a really comprehensive answer. And I think we just want to reassure members that this is one of a number of projects that the City Deal is securing and hoping to deliver to improve regional opportunities. We've got a number of authority-specific projects, but this, together with the digital project, are regional, and they will be linking in with other work streams that are being undertaken in the county borough and beyond. beyond. And Jane just mentioned the Earth project, which will enable us to have resources in a number of key topic areas, including transportation and strategic land use planning, amongst other things, economic development and wellbeing being another. So we'll link all these projects together to ensure we get the best outcomes for the communities. In terms of the specific reference you made to one of your constituents, what we would need to establish is why that constituent had to give up, a good job. Is it because there's poor connectivity because it's simply not available, or is it because it's not affordable? So we need to establish the reasons behind it, and look to see whether there are opportunities there that person can pursue to improve the connectivity to her property. Now, we know that our IT section are looking at a list of properties within the county borough at the moment where there is poor connection. So when we establish where those properties are, we can identify whether there are solutions in place or whether we can put solutions in place to improve that connectivity. So there's a lot of work going on, and we've got a list as well of a number of different funds that are available, and we can send those to you if you want to, Councillor Hunt, so that you can distribute that information to your constituents, and maybe all other members in the county borough will also be interested in that, so that to make them aware of what funding opportunities that they can pursue if it is an issue of affordability. So we're more than happy to share that information with you.
Steve, do you wish to come back?
Yeah,
Please,
very
Steve.
briefly. I know you've got a very long meeting, but with due respect, Nicola, I know all the funding pots. I've been to Welsh Government. I've been to Carmarthen. Now we're the IT experts there. I've challenged every possible position on this, even with BT Openreach and the likes. They're, as you would probably know, with Ofcom. The Welsh Government has to give 10 megabits a second. That's law now, and I can't even get that 4 megabits a second I am currently on, and my neighbours. There isn't anything you can offer me that will improve it. It's about getting the BT Openreach to carry out the necessary work. I believe that is the major factor as far as I'm concerned. I think I'm in the 3% share of Wales that has been identified as they haven't reached yet. But I'm putting it in this forum, Chair. That's the point I'm making. It wasn't having a go, but with Jane's presentation and Nicola's, excellent. I just want it in the forum so they're aware of it, so that possibly there's options to improve and support where I am and possibly where others are. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Steve. Next I have on my list is Councillor Suzanne Pattison, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, welcome this report greatly. I think that it's a wonderful thing to target the education side of it, and I do understand that because of the nature of the city deal, these projects come to us at different times. So I take on board what Jane has said, in that other projects may support this one going forward, and I do sympathise with Councillor Hunt. It's not good to have areas where the connectivity is not brilliant, and I'll take that on the chin there. And I'm hoping that the city deal projects, when they come to fruition, will encourage companies like Openreach to do exactly what you've suggested, Councillor, that if we build it, they will come, sort of thing. So 100% behind this project, and thank you, Jane, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Next on my list is Nigel Hunt. Councillor Nigel Hunt, please. Nigel.
Oh, thank you, Saif. Basically, the questions I'm going to ask have been covered, really. I do support this project. I think that it's great to see there's going to be 3,000 apprenticeships created in the region, and I hope, of course, that Neath Talbot gets a fair share of those apprenticeships, and indeed that we get a fair share of the digital infrastructure projects. And I'd just like to be informed on that, but I'm really pleased to see that City Deal is moving forward, Chair. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Nigel. Councillor Sonia Reynolds, please, next.
Thank you, Chair. My question followed on from Steve Hunt, Councillor Hunt's question covered a lot of it. However, I'm an old hand with the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership, and I'm well aware of how education and learning works in all the sectors, and am concerned that there will be very much provision at the standard settings, and that what will happen is things that outside of the council's control, like the bus service that runs once a day from some of our valleys down to the colleges, will be all that exists, and that makes life very difficult for women with childcare needs, with family commitments, and others with other job commitments to retrain unless they've got their own transport that's available to them for the whole time. I would like to see at some point in the future practical plans for coming through from at least one of the projects, or a link across all of them, as to how some of these things will be achieved. Rather than, I'm very aware this is a 5-case business model, business case, and it's has its limitations and it's at a high level. However, we need to see the practicalities of this spelt out so that we can feel sure that our communities in valleys and rural areas will have the coverage, that childcare needs will be provided at some point so that people can retrain, and that other barriers can be overcome. And I'd be very grateful to know if there's going to be any practical outcomes or plans put forward to follow on from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Who's taking this question then?
Do you want? Shall I take it, Nicola? I can answer some of it.
Yes, please, and I'll come in behind you then, if you wouldn't mind, Jane.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Councillor, good afternoon, Councillor Reynolds. Yes, this is very much, as you've mentioned, it's a 5-case business model. We've written the business case in that way. But my hope of this programme is that we are going to get on with it and get delivering, and having that plan in place, as you've so rightly mentioned, of how we're going to deliver, where we're going to deliver, and what we're going to deliver. Those are the 3 key important elements of this programme, to make sure that we have got that widespread of coverage across all of the levels of qualification. But as I mentioned in my presentation, we can't do this all on our own. We have to work with the employability programs that are out there. We have to work with the colleges, the universities, and the training providers, have them all around the table to make sure that we're not duplicating. We're not doing something that somebody out there is already doing, spending money that we don't need to be spending because that's already being covered. But bringing that whole picture, that's what my aim is, that we have one whole picture of how it's going to be delivered and when it's going to be delivered. Thank you.
Nicola?
All I would add to that, Chair, is that this is a critical piece of work that Jane is leading on, and she is linking in with all the other City Deal projects, as well as other employability jobs, projects across the region, and we need to establish what is stopping people from getting the qualifications they need to get into valued, well-paid jobs going forward. Why are they not able to access them at the moment? And we need to identify, even if we know what they are, what can we put in place to address that? And it's that data that we need coming out, and we need to fit it in with all our other projects. As members know, we are leading on a project in Neath, Talbot, in terms of supporting innovation and low carbon growth. Now, we anticipate that there will be lots of well-paid, high value jobs coming out of that particular project, but it may well be that the higher and further education establishments may not necessarily be training our young people at the moment to go into those types of professions going forward, or we may not have the ability at the moment in terms of the types of courses to retrain existing employees who are currently doing a particular piece of work, and they need to sort of reskill to enable them to evolve to the changing economy that we are likely to experience reports over the next few years. So this is an iterative programme which will develop over time. Now, who would have thought that we would be holding committees or cabinet boards and scrutinies in the way that we're holding it today? So we don't know what type of training environment we're going to be providing in the future. So as I say, it's going to be an iterative programme that will evolve over time to meet the needs of the service users at that particular moment in time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Nicola. Sonia?
I feel that whilst I understand the difficulties and I understand the working across all the programmes and the need and the time it's going to take, I think that there is a need for a clear, practical plan. As you say, the barriers might already be known. We have to understand how those are going to be overcome. It's not about what people are going to learn, it's about how they access that learning. And it's very much a case of what are the possibilities going to be for that, because we know that the majority of employers are not in the valley areas, not in the rural areas. We know that apprenticeships are difficult to get there. We know that colleges are based in towns, and that even our own adult learning department does not come up into the valleys that much, into all the valleys, and people have to go to them or work online, and that's not that easy for some parents who've got children at home. So how are we going to deal with that? And we need to have a plan as to how that goes forward, and I hope that all of the partners working together can produce something over time that will actually address those issues.
Chair, can I just come back in there, please?
Yes.
Yeah, just to respond to Councillor Reynolds, that's exactly what we hope to achieve with this programme. You know, Jane and her colleagues have prepared the 5-case business plan or business case for UK and Welsh governments to consider. And should they consider that positively, which we obviously hope they will, then that will enable funding to flow through, so we can put address all those issues and find out how we can better support our communities going forward to ensure that they receive the education they deserve and that they need in order to contribute towards our evolving economy. So it's when that funding comes through, all those plans, the practical plans that you've spoken about, that is the intention of Jane and her colleagues and the senior responsible officers and all the other City Deal programmes, as well as the projects that we are running, you know, as a council. So it's once we get that funding, that's when we can put those practical plans in place.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you. Next on my list, I have 2 further indication from members on this particular report. Alan Llewellyn, then Sean Percy. So can I go to Alan first, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Very briefly, I think that a lot of relevant points have been raised by both Steve and Sonia. And I was just going to mention that because this is a regional or will be a regional project, if it's endorsed by all of the authorities that are part of the Swansea Bay Partnership, because it's a regional project, it will be a project that can be scrutinised by the Joint Scrutiny Committee. So I think that perhaps if we can capture the type of questions that both Steve and Sonia have raised this afternoon, then as the project goes through its various developmental phases and gets implemented, I think it'll be relevant for us, for those of us that are part of the Joint Scrutiny Committee, to come back to this project to you know, to check its progress against the sort of questions that have been raised this afternoon. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Good point. There is one further indication from a member, Hugh James. So I'll go to Sean Percy and then I'll go to Councillor James after. Sean.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks Jane for the presentation today. Yeah, I read this report with some interest really in the business case, and just supposed to echo some of the members. It is a really exciting project and a really exciting prospect to have more funding to boost skills and training. I guess the question, maybe concern I've got is perhaps the complexity that may arise, and I think we've all had some experience of multiple schemes coming and going and different branding and different names and operating at the same time and in certain areas, region specific, age specific, and I find it quite baffling as a councillor sometimes if I want to offer some advice to somebody as to where to go and what might be available. It is quite tricky. And I just kind of want to flag that up really, because when I'm kind of reading, I read through the business case and obviously there's a lot of talk about engaging with a lot of the existing projects, and obviously the organisation that's taken this on has that overarching sort of role and agenda. I can certainly see the sort of education setting side of things being a bit more straightforward. But where I'm perhaps a bit more concerned is people who are in existing employment who may be looking to upskill, for them to be aware of what opportunities are there for them and what training is there for them, because my fear would be that they would go to perhaps a provider or something they're aware of and may not be aware that there's this extra scope, there's this extra training they could get further. So it's one thing raising the ambition of school children and pupils, which is excellent. But I think part of this is going to be reaching those people in employment and both raising their ambitions about what they could do and their awareness and access to this. So that'd be my only thing that I'd be really keen to see as this progresses is, are we going to add even more complexity to the training and skills sort of landscape, or are we going to get this streamlined? So if somebody walks through the door and wants to know what's available, they've got access to everything and can fully realise their potential. I just wanted to flag that up, Chair, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Hugh James, next, please. Hugh?
Hey, thank you, Chair. I'll be brief because you've got a long agenda this afternoon. It's a very, very good report and I'll be supporting it. The question I was going to ask Jane, actually, down there in Carmarthenshire, and Nicola here, you raised a very interesting point. Looking at the statistic, there's still a number of people in poorer areas without any qualifications, formal education at all. And you raised a very interesting point. To make this successful and get our aspirations right, we don't want to be in the position, as you said, that if we haven't got the skilled workforce here, people will come from outside. That I would have thought the whole idea of this is to create employment, not just the valleys, as my colleague has said, and areas where deprivation is as well.
Okay. Jane or Nicola, do you want to respond?
Jane, do you want to go first and I'll follow on?
Yes, Councillor James. I couldn't agree with you more. This programme, although there were originally aspirations to basically focus all the training on the higher end qualifications, as you could see from the diagram I showed you in my presentation, there are a number of people that we should be looking at to give them the opportunity to get that training and skills and upskilling, particularly, that could get them into those high paid jobs that are being created by the City Deal projects, and hopefully by new investors that will invest in our region because of what's happening with the City Deal program, the 8 City Deal projects. So, this is a conduit to many more jobs, I would hope, in the future. And what I wouldn't like to see is that because we haven't got the skilled individuals in the region, that people are brought in from outside the region to take up the jobs that our young people and people in employment in our region should be getting.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Chair, the only thing I would add to that is I agree completely with Jane. And what we also need to address is that skills leakage, because we got some very bright young and older people in Neath, Talbot who are secure in those qualifications, and they're leaving the county borough to find jobs which are available elsewhere. So we need to reverse that. We need to create the skill and talent within the county borough and the region as a whole, but we also need to ensure that they have opportunities for jobs to stay within that region and within Neath, Talbot. So they are very much linked. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely right.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any further indications. So before I go to a recommendation, can I thank Jane and Nicola for presenting this report today and answering some of members' questions. Thank you very much. The recommendations are on page 9. Need a proposer and a second to approve to go to Cabinet today.
I propose, Chair.
Okay, seconder, please.
I second, Chair.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next item then, which is item number 6 on the cabinet agenda, Pontardawe Arts Centre Cinema Project. This is on page 131 to 142. Can I ask the officers who's reporting, Andrew Thomas, is there anything you wish to add to the report before I take questions?
I don't think so, Chair. The report is pretty straightforward. It's a request from the capital programme for an additional 600k to deliver the scheme. The reason for that is we've now had detailed designs and detailed budget costs back. We haven't tendered it, obviously. And the cost is far in excess of what we thought the original budget would be. So to deliver the project, there is an ask from the capital programme. It isn't just to deliver the cinema. There is some remodelling work of the art centre involved in this scheme to make the facility work better from a customer flow point of view. So there's probably over £150,000 of that total cost of 1.35 million budget cost involved in remodelling the existing facility as well as delivering the new facility, the new art centre, the new cinema. So that's the purpose of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. And I believe Paul Walker's on the call as well, so either one of us will answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. There is a question with regards to the cost. So can I ask Councillor Wyndham Griffiths to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Mr. Thomas. Yeah, my question was about what you just stated, that you had the first exercise in bringing it forward, and then the business plan was confirmed, and then my question about the cost came then about the second exercise, where it was brought up that you needed another 600k, and my question really was, when I read the report, why is that? And had you had lots more done to the centre than was first indicated in the first report? But obviously by your answers there, you've answered my question, really. But if you'd like to,
yes, certainly, Councillor Griffiths. There's two things really. There's as I say, the additional cost to make the facility work better from a customer point of view, which when you go into the extent of putting a new facility in there and making sure that works seamlessly across the whole art centre, it probably, in officers' opinion, worth the additional capital expenditure, because there's probably revenue benefits that can be generated from that to make sure the customers pass those income generating areas like the cafe and the bar, which isn't the case now. And the other, probably more significant reason is there's more detailed design work being done now. It's a much more complicated technical job in terms of the current supplies and facilities there. A substantial amount of that cost will be moving all the supplies coming into the building, and these are the main electrical supplies coming into the building. They'll have to be moved. So it's just a much more complicated technical project than first thought, and the detail work has now been done, and that's why the additional cost is there, plus the additional cost of remodelling the building. So that's why the cost has gone up.
Wyndham, you're satisfied with the response?
Yes, now that it's been brought out, and we know exactly what it's been spent on. Yes, I mean, I'm all for this project and I will be voting for it. But just a little bit about, I mean, from the first report it was 500, and that extra 600 was double the amount, and that's all. Now that it's been explained, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, thank you. Just to be clear, the local authorities has earmarked £500,000 of this capital programme, and there's £300,000 from the Arts Council for Wales. So the original scheme was 800,000 in total. So it's gone up. You are right, it's gone up £600,000. But the original scheme, we believe, would have cost £800,000. But yeah, and those are the reasons.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Councillor Nigel Han. Nigel, you had a question at the pre-briefing yesterday. Do you wish to ask that question today, or did you manage to get the answer by email? Or
No, I haven't had the answer, so I would like to ask that question now.
Yes.
I'd also like to say I really I back this project. I think it will help the cultural life in Neath Talbot, so I'm really pleased to see it. What I'd like to ask Andrew is, do you know what percentage of our budget of our GRE that we spend on culture? I'd like to know the answer to that. And also, I think you just said the Arts Council of Wales, did they provide 300,000 for this? And furthermore, it seems to me that this wouldn't qualify for money from the Levelling Up Fund, because you've got town centre regeneration, that was one of the priorities, and secondly it was for cultural improvements, which this surely falls into that bracket. So could this have been worked into the Levelling Up Fund as well?
Two of your questions are easy to answer. The first one not so easy off the top of my head, but that's for sure. Yes, the Arts Council put in £300,000 into it.
Yeah.
We certainly looked at the Levelling Up Fund, and unfortunately, and maybe Nicola can give us the exact detail, but it isn't eligible, or certainly it wasn't helping. I think it was confusing some of our other priorities, and maybe Nicola can give you the detail around that. And the answer to your first question, I can get back to you. I hadn't seen your requested information. I can certainly come back to you on that, but I don't know that information off the top of my head. Sorry, Nigel.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Can I call up Nicola Pierce and Simon Brennan, please?
Yeah, just briefly, the question on the Levelling Up Fund. We did originally propose to do the works within, or some of the works within the Arts Centre as part of our package of projects within the Neath constituency. Unfortunately, we have to have, as part of the process, we have to have economists to do a benefit cost ratio, which is part of the application process. And unfortunately, the benefits cost ratio coming out of the Pontardawe arts element of the project was pushing down the score on the overall package of projects, and it potentially would have undermined our ability to secure money for the remainder of the projects. So unfortunately, we had to withdraw it for that reason.
Simon?
That's fine, actually, Chair. I was just going to answer the same question as Nick, so that's fine. No problem.
Okay, no problem. Nigel, did you have any follow-up questions, or you're happy with the response you've had?
No, I'm not. No, I'm happy with this one. I'm a bit disappointed, obviously, that didn't understand. I didn't know anything with that aspect of the financial, but the score is disappointing to hear that. But yeah, I'm glad the Arts Council give us money, and I hope to hear from Andrew going forward with regards to culture and our budget. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, good stuff. Next on my list is Simon Noyle, please. Councillor Noyle.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll be behind the recommendation for this item as well. But just a query to Andrew, and appreciating the devil is in the detail, and my background being quantity surveying, I thought I'd ask the question. If I was producing a cost plan at tender stage, which got it to 800k, and then with a little bit more detail was added to it, got it up to 1.3, a client would be asking me all sorts of questions as to why these changes have taken the original cost plan up so much. Is it possible for us to see a copy of the original cost plan and then the revised one, please?
I don't know if Paul Durrell is on the call. Is Paul Durrell on?
Yeah, Andrew.
Paul will be able to explain the technical detail much better than I, Simon. So I'll let Paul come in.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Just to answer your question, Councillor Noyle, the original feasibility study was done by Dematus Ryan on behalf of the Arts Council of Wales, and it really was a basic feasibility study which identified the new cinema option. But what it didn't account for is there were a lot of exclusions within that original feasibility report, i.e. I think you've seen that the plan is part of the committee report there now. I mean, that shows a breakout space, it shows ancillary toilets, it shows work to the external plant yard, there's demolition of the existing services that Andrew touched on earlier. So it was basically a cost plan, which, I'm quite happy to share. I mean, that that didn't address the full scheme, and it was a RIBA stage 1 feasibility cost. So there were a lot of exclusions there that that were obviously going to increase the price. and the complexities of the site now with the services, with the fire strategy, etc., has compounded the issues there. And that's really the reason for the increase in cost.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Simon, do you wish to ask
Yes,
any?
yeah, thanks, Chair. Only very briefly, I just wondered if those items were or in the original scheme. As I say, Paul, with respect, I've been in QS, you know, if there were an item there, I'd have put some money against it rather than excluded it at stage one, if that were the case. I'm just interested to know why they got it not so wrong, but why the figure wasn't as high as it should be. When you're producing cost plans, invariably, I produce them as what I would seem to be realistic figures, and they'll be there or thereabouts rather than. Well, I appreciate the devil comes out in the detail, but I would just, and I'm only looking at it from a scrutiny type of perspective.
Yeah.
And is this a lesson learned that next time we carry out our own cost plan estimates rather than relying on the Arts Council of Wales, for example?
Yeah. Can I just come in there in Paul Durrell's defence? To be fair to Paul, I think he said from the outset, as did Clive Bernard, that he didn't think that the budget estimate was anything like enough to deliver the scheme. But the Arts Council were insistent that if they were going to put their capital funding in, that they wanted to do it their way, and that's what had to happen. So, you know, I would say that our technical boys always thought that the budget cost was never enough. But you know, as I said, we did have to toe the line from the Arts Council if we were to secure their funding, and that's what we did at the end of the day.
Okay, Simon Brennan, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. QS support, quantity survey support is a bit of a rare occurrence for us at the moment, unfortunately. And I have spoken to Simon about this before. I did ask him if he wanted a job at one stage, because we've struggled to recruit surveyors, quantity surveyors, for a number of years now, and those that we've recruited have left quickly because they've had better paid jobs elsewhere. So it is a problem for us, and we have had to rely on external support more than we would like. We are going through a process now where we're hoping to be in the position where we can recruit more, but they are a bit of they're like hen's teeth for us at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I have Sandra Miller next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Pleased to see this report before us. Previous reports always carried the caveat of the costs may rise. You know, we've seen that in evidence today. I think we need to get behind this, and I know it's more costly. However, you know, what we're going to get out of it is going to be a project that is pivotal to the area and future valley activity. And no, this is the right one to get really behind. You know, the plans, not that I know much about plans, but no, they look pretty good to me. And having frequented the Arts Centre previously, it was never suitable for disabled people, etc. So, you know, we're seeing some real improvements here, and hopefully it'll go from strength to strength. But the caveat was the costs may rise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sandra. Suzanne, please, next.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, Sandra, totally agree with what you've said. I'm from a ward which is about as far away from the Pontardawe Arts Centre as you can be in the county borough, and I am more than happy to vote for the extra money to give Pontardawe the Cultural Arts Centre that it deserves. And I've got a cinema in my ward, or just over the border, sorry, Sean, in very close to my ward, and Neath has got a cinema. Pontardawe ought to have one too, and if we are doing this, we ought to provide the first-class services to residents there that everywhere else gets. So I'm more than happy to vote for the extra money. Thank you.
Okay, next, Sonia, please.
Just to clarify and make support for officers on this, I fully remember at a meeting of the Culture and Leisure subcommittee hearing that these costs were likely to rise, and that we felt that not everything that possibly needed to be in was in, and that there may be need for more money as the report went forward. So I think, you know, we knew that, we knew what we were going for, and agree with my colleagues. I live and I use this facility. I live close to it. It's not in my ward, but it's really important to our valley communities in the Amman and Swansea valleys particularly.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. Finally, then, Alan.
Yes, just very briefly, Chair, just coming on the back of all the comments and the questions, and I think the questions have been very, very relevant. You know, we are here to scrutinise, obviously, but I think that there's obviously broad agreement that this is a very, very important facility. It is the only arts centre located in one of the valley areas, and you know, I'm sure that we're all going to support the investment, but it's been very, very relevant that we've had the scrutiny session. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Okay, the recommendations which are going to Cabinet today are on page 134. Can I get a proposer and a seconder for this to go to Cabinet, please?
I'd like
Oh, is that a propose? Okay, I got to propose a seconder, please.
Second.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. 2 down, 6 more to go. Okay, the next one then is the Audit Wales review of the corporate performance management system. I believe Sheena Rees is presenting this report and Hugh Jones. Is there anything you would wish to add to the report, both Sheena and Hugh, or shall I open it up for questions?
Good afternoon, Chair. I don't think Sheena's here. I think her colleague, Karen Furlow-Harris is here to represent her, but I've got nothing further to add, Chair, but happy to take questions.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Steve Hunt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a very quick, brief question, really. The risk management of audit report on pages 148 to 150 indicates a lot of work is necessary, as with the audit recommendations on the item. How will we address all the points raised in the report so that to ensure improvements needed going forward will be achieved at Neath and Talbot County Borough Council as a whole, and give us all the confidence that we recognise and aim to put right all the recommendations as and when possible? Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Steve. Hugh, are you going to take this, or Karen?
No, I'll take it, Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Just if you look at the action plan, Chair, you'll notice that a lot of the actions are due for completion by the 30th of June 2021, which is actually today. So if I just run through them in order and just let you know what's been done, perhaps I can give members some assurance that everything's in hand. So in terms of the first recommendation, arrangements have been reviewed. We've set up new individual roles and responsibilities, and training's already been provided. In terms of the second action plan point, on page 149, corporate directors have now nominated officers to review and update the risk management system. In terms of number 3, all corporate directors have now updated their risks. Number 4, the system has been reconfigured to align with best practice, so that's done. So the only outstanding items really are the reporting to members, which will take place now after the summer break, Chair.
Okay,
I hope
Steve.
that's helpful as an update.
Steve, do you wish to come back?
No, that's very reassuring that Hugh and his colleagues have this in hand and they're making progress. So thank you for that, Hugh, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Marie, I can see you've put your hands up. Would you like to ask a question on this item?
Chair, I'm not sure whether I'm still allowed in the meeting. I need clarification.
Okay, Chloe?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, Marie, because it's a public meeting, so you're still allowed to be in this meeting.
Right.
Yeah, you're fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
No problem, that's fine. Okay, there are no further indication. So can I take you to the recommendation, please, which is on page 146. I need a proposer and a seconder for this report to go to cabinet. Okay, seconder, please.
Second, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the cabinet agenda that we wish to scrutinize is item number 8, which is the investments from reserve 2021 to 2022. Howell Jenkins is the reporting officer. I'm not too sure if Howell is here today.
I am, Chair.
Oh, you are? Okay, sorry, Howell. Howell, would you like to add anything to the report before I take questions from members?
No, well, just quickly then, Chair. Members can see that the aim of the report is to feed back to Cabinet and to Scrutiny Committee basically what the Council is actually delivering in the first place as part of its current capital programme. That information is set out on page 152, and that was approved by Council on the 9th of March. I've highlighted the areas for the report for the £500,000 that is shown in yellow on page 153 around the environmental street scene improvements, because this was additional monies approved as part of the capital programme that needed a final sign-off, and that's going to the Street Scene and Engineering Cabinet Board later this week with the individual proposals there. You touched on earlier bids that have been made to the UK Levelling Fund and the UK Community Renewals Fund. These were proposals that were considered by Cabinet and Scrutiny Committee previously. And so there's a huge amount of work and investment that is going to take place across the county borough. But then in addition, the Leader of Council had asked that we consider looking at investing some of the additional monies that had been put into reserves onto important functions and services during the coming year. And that's what the rest of this report is. And I'm happy to take questions, and either myself or colleagues will answer them, Chair.
Thank you, Howell. Okay, there are several members indicated to ask question on this particular report. So can I first go to Councillor Arwen Woolcock, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I refer to page 159 of the report, Chairman, under the heading Valleys Communities Impact, where it states, and I quote, the investments set out in this report will be across the whole of the county borough, including Valleys communities, end of quote. However, Chair, there is little evidence of where and how the valleys will benefit from this investment contained within the report. And I would suggest, with respect, Chair, that the statement requires considerable strengthening, and it would be helpful if Scrutiny Committee could be provided with more detail. So that is my question, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, who's taking this question, please?
I will start if that's okay, Chair.
Yes,
well, in terms of this report, this report mainly talks about the additional £5 million that is being proposed for investment. And if I look at the individual elements that are included within that proposal, Chair, then if I look at the members' community fund, there's £10,000 per member across each of the community areas that they represent will be available and will be delivered as investments this year and next year in terms of the other report that is in front of Cabinet today. In terms of the vehicle renewals programme, yes, that isn't going to, the vehicles will be covering the whole of the county borough. The investment isn't going to take place exactly in each community, and I accept that in terms of Councillor Wilcock's query. In terms of the metal box investment, yes, the physical location of the building is in an area which is part of Neath. But the employment of people that are likely to be made there will come across various communities. Which communities, I do not know as yet, but to think that it isn't going to benefit the wider community, including the valleys, I think is not quite right, Chair. Similarly, around the DARE investments, what we will be doing is trying to use the monies to top up investments around our energy and everything else. And the other areas there are from where the funds are coming from. So I understand what perhaps I could have explained it better in terms of the Valley community impacts. Perhaps it should have been reworded, but I do believe that there will be wider implications and benefits from this investment that will benefit people across the county borough. And I will review that in terms of future such reports, Chair. But it isn't limited to individual communities. It isn't limited to individual towns. It will cover a wider breadth than that, Chair.
Chair, could I come back with a supplementary on that?
Yes, absolutely. Please.
Yeah, I fully accept that, Chair, but I really do believe quite firmly that the valleys do need regeneration. We had the disappointment, was it a week or so ago, in learning that the Levelling Up Fund is not going to provide any additional funding at all to the valleys, and that's despite the officers making strong representations on the valley's behalf. The UK minister that officers met with declined to accede to that request. Now, we do have the Shared Prosperity Fund that may be utilised for that purpose. And we will also, I dare say, have the Members Fund that we'll be discussing a little later on this afternoon. But I do think that we need a little bit of meat on the bones and as to what is going to be physically happening in the valleys. You know, I know this, it's a sore subject about school closures. Well, a school closed in my village back in 2011, and nothing has come to replace that facility. And that's why, as the champion of the valleys on this County Borough Council, that's why I'm pumping and forcing the issue on valleys communities. So I think we do need a little bit more detail, Chair, with regard to what is going to happen in the valleys. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Simon, I can see you've indicated.
It was just to reply on that one to Councillor Wilcock. I mean, obviously, with all of the funding that we can get for regeneration, we're guided by the criteria of the funding stream itself. So there's been quite an emphasis in recent years from both Welsh Government and more latterly from the UK Government about town centres, about principal town centres. And I think everybody would recognise that we need to support those. But in all of the meetings that we have, and it happened in the meeting that we had earlier this week, we are stressing to our colleagues within Welsh Government that we also need funding for valley communities as well. And I think that they recognise that, albeit that would require a sort of a slight shift, I suppose, from the town centre first principle. And in terms of the fund that we've got for the application we made on the Levelling Up Fund, obviously the commercial property grant, if we're successful in that for both the Aberafan constituency and the Neath constituency, would allow us to potentially to do work within valley communities as well, to offer those grants. It is, you know, I mean, we remain to know whether we'll be successful or not, but that's certainly the aim of that particular proposal.
Okay. Arwen, do you wish to come back?
Sorry, Chair, I was looking for the mute button. No, I won't press it any further. I'll just press it as we go along, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next, can I have Councillor Alan Llewellyn, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I mean, first of all, I'd concur with what Councillor Wilcock just said with regards to the valley areas, and also the references to the Levelling Up Fund and the Shared Prosperity Fund. I mean, several aspects of the package that's before us today are dependent on the bids to those particular UK government funds succeeding. But as we know, there is very little control either locally or nationally in Wales on the way in which decisions around those funds are made. So it creates a great deal of uncertainty for us. But I did submit some questions in advance. The first one, I think, has just been clarified to me by Mr. Howell Jenkins. I asked whether the highlighted 500,000 was the same as the list that it will be considered by street care scrutiny and cabinet members next month, and I think it's been clarified to me that that is the case. That is the list. There's also in the report a reference to neighbourhood improvements of 150,000, a regeneration heading of 2,275,000, and I asked if those could be summarised so we were aware of the context. So that was the first set of questions that I submitted. Secondly, I was asking, while the report refers to capital spend, what is being done to ensure sufficient resources for frontline teams in street care and environment? Because we know that there is a large backlog of work, from potholes to grass cutting to various forms of environmental enforcement, and we're aware of the impacts of COVID and redeployment, but our hard-working and conscientious frontline teams are under huge pressure and are under-resourced. So while we are looking today at various aspects of capital spend, what will we be doing to support these frontline teams? And then my final question submitted was that if the spend is approved, what will be the remaining reserves position? Thank you.
Okay. Howell?
Yep. Thank you, Chair. If I look at the question around the investment in the environment budget in terms of the current year, the report that was approved by Council on the 9th of March said that we are investing £41.9 million in terms of all the functions that the Environment Directorate manage. That was a 2.4 million increase on last year. And when you take account of the grants and the income that they manage, that equates to about £61 million worth of investment across all the services. And I think that the decision on budgets is it's been set for the current year, but this actual proposal in front of members today does include an additional £135,000 to bring in seasonal staff early towards the end of January next year, in advance of the new financial year, using that money from the reserves. And some of the projects that members will be investing from the members fund and various other things may also look at improving some community facilities and activity in there. But the debate on the wider budget will be something that will be considered for next year, and members will have to take that in the round of when they are aware of the total funds available from the UK government spending review, which is, I understand, looking to report sometime in November. And then when the Welsh Government's draft budget and final budgets are set later this year, probably the draft one around Christmas time, and the final one probably in again February, March of next year. That's the likely timetable around those matters. But there will be decisions and priorities that the Council will need to look at in investing in terms of its budget for next year. In terms of the reserves, the report that was given to members on the outturn for last year showed that the general reserves closed with 20 million, but we are pulling 3.1 million of that in terms of this year. So there's about £17 million projected left at the end of this year. And then in terms of the specific reserves, at the end of last year, it was 58.1 million. We were planning to pull about 1.6 million from there. And this report is talking about another 5 million, so probably about 51.5 million. But as members are aware, when this issue was discussed at the most recent scrutiny meeting, I said the opportunity for reviewing all the reserves and everything around the budget setting will be something that will be brought back for members' consideration in the autumn, prior to making any determinations going forward into budget setting next year, because the important thing is you have got a sustainable budget going forward, because the council's got that responsibility to take into account. So hopefully, in terms of those items, I can answer. I don't know whether Nicola, Simon have had the opportunity of looking at the other questions you asked Councillor Llewellyn.
Nicola, Simon?
Do you require any further confirmation, Councillor Llewellyn, or has Howell sort of given you the reassurance perhaps you were looking for?
Well, I think part of my question was you know, to ask for a recap of what the neighbourhood improvements line meant. Were they included in the points that Howell made? I know they're separate from the 500,000 list that's going to street care scrutiny next month. You know, I'm happy to have the information outside of today's meeting. And likewise, I was asking for a summary of the 2 million plus regeneration heading. I mean, coming back to the other aspects of Howell's reply, suggesting that there may be additional spend next year on day-to-day services. Whether, as things stand, the reality is that all areas, particularly outside town centres, have seen deterioration in the care of localities, and that does affect the well-being of our residents and our communities and the morale of our frontline workers, because they work very, very hard and very conscientiously. Often against the odds, and I think that we should be doing everything that we can to support them, and in turn that supports our communities. There's work to be done, I think.
I think there's an acknowledgement across the council that given the last 14-16 months that we've had, which have been particularly difficult for everyone working in the council. We've never worked in a pandemic before. I don't think any of our business continuity plans were ever designed to deal with an emergency of the scale and the longitude in terms of the timescales that we've just experienced. Unfortunately, we've had to redeploy a lot of staff, in the street care section, a lot of staff who perhaps would have been doing improvements to our parks and our street furniture and cleanliness areas. We've had to redeploy them to other duties to ensure that our statutory functions have continued to operate. And as a consequence of that, and as you quite rightly said, it's quite visible out there. And we need now to ensure that we focus on those areas that haven't intentionally been sort of set aside and neglected, but they have visibly deteriorated over the time, and we need to invest to ensure that the basics that we were previously getting right continue to improve going forward. And we hold our hands up because of the redeployment of staff. We haven't been able to get that right over the last 12 to 14 months, and the public can see it and you can see it, and that's what we need to address with this this financial support.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And obviously, I appreciate all the issues on redeployment and everything that everybody has struggled through during the past year, and people don't always appreciate or know the full scale of that. But because we are, in this scrutiny session looking at the issue of recovery, then Nicola mentioned visibility, and we used to refer to these as visible services, and that's the point. It is visible. It is affecting people's well-being because it's what people see right in front of their eyes, in their own area. So I think that I'm not going to oppose any one of the investments that are actually proposed here today, but I do think that we need and I don't think it's just an issue for the next budget round in October, or doing something with additional staff in January. I think during the course of this current year, we need to be looking at making additional resources available, for the immediate future, to get our areas through this period and get our areas back to a standard of pride and and looking good, basically. So that we complement the sunshine with good-looking localities. So I'll leave it at that, but I think I made the point. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Can I call up Chief Exec, please, Karen Jones?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add really to what my colleagues have said, and in a way, I think Councillor Llewellyn started to introduce the next item on the agenda as well, because there's no doubt that COVID has had a massive impact on the county borough. And in this conversation, we're talking about the street scene, the visible services and the impact on that. And it's good to hear that members understand why that's happened as well, because of the way in which we've needed to adapt the services over the last 15 months. But we've been working this week on the details that's coming through now around COVID impact, and there are equally significant pressures that you'll understand, I'm sure, that are coming through in terms of social services and education as well. So I think when we, pull all of this picture together as we move into the autumn, which is, I think, what Howell was trying to say, I think you'll have an overall picture of the impact of COVID right across the council's responsibilities. And it is going to be important that we have a debate then about where the priorities are for us as we move forward. So what you've got in front of you today is some proposal to begin to address some of the impacts that we're seeing, but it is the start, Councillor Llewellyn, of a conversation we need to have, certainly not the end of it. And you'll see in my report on the next agenda item, it's really important that we talk with our communities about that as well, to make sure that we are getting that kind of wider engagement into our decision-making processes. So I think we all accept that there's a big impact on street scene, but there are equally significant impacts right across the council services. And we need to just have a couple of months now to put that picture together for you. The other point, I suppose, Chair, that is important to make is we are in the third wave. We are starting to see impacts in social care and in our education system this week. So as much as we might want to think that we can, move forward with recovery, unfortunately, we're going to have to keep one foot in response as well. And there are going to be times where we're going to be able to move forward with recovery, but there may be times where we will have to slow it down or even pause it because of the way in which this pandemic is playing out in our communities. So I just wanted to make those couple of points, Chair, because it is important, as much as we value what we do around our visible services, there are pressures all around the system at the moment.
Thank you, Karen. Can I now call up Councillor Nigel Hunt, please?
Thank you, Chair. First thing I said, I was really heartened when I first heard that there was going to be more budget for the street scene improvements, but I kind of assumed really that we were going to have better frontline services, more community teams on the street care, and maybe more enforcement officers. Because I think all the deprived urban areas in this county are all really struggling with street care. The place looks really messy and it's depressing. So I was just a bit disappointed really and I hope that this comes up again. We need more community teams on our street care and more enforcement officers. So rogue residents who are fly tipping all over the place. So we need to prosecute them and try and put a threat out there, because it's the most depressing part of being a councillor actually, is the state of our urban streets. So I just want to get that across. I'm a bit disappointed with it. The other thing I'd like to bring up is the Levelling Up Fund. I see that we've got around about £10 million worth of we bid for about £10 million worth of funding. I thought whether we were having £20 million per constituency, making that £40 million. Is this just the first phase, or could we have applied for £40 million in this phase? Because it seems to be we're not. Yeah, can you tell me? Can we have some clarity on that, on the 10 million and 40 million? Yeah, can we have clarity on that, please, on the levelling up fund? Thank you.
Do you want me to respond on that, Nick?
Yeah, anyone?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we could have bid for up to £20 million per constituency. The likelihood of us getting that was probably quite limited, as there's not a great deal to share around in Wales. This proposal is a sort of forerunner to the SPF in some ways, the Shared Prosperity Fund. But it is a change in dimension for us now in terms of funding, because obviously before a lot of our funding came through Welsh Government, whereas now we're having to put business cases together to UK Government. So whereas our funding was a bit more guaranteed previously, or we had there was certainly funding ring fenced to Wales, now we're in effect competing against English authorities as well. So I think the funding that we've put in so far for an authority like ours is probably a reasonable level of funding to apply for. I don't think we would have been successful if we'd applied for a great deal more.
Can I come in as well, Chair, please?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. With the levelling up fund, it's fair to say that we knew the fund was coming. We didn't know the content of the prospectus and the technical documents that accompanied it until the very last minute, until it was launched. So we didn't have advance notice before it was launched. There were very, very tight timescales associated with it, and there were a process that you had to go through in terms of endorsement, stakeholder engagement, and endorsement from the stakeholders, etc., etc. And you had to have effectively what we've previously termed oven-ready projects. So you had to have schemes that were more or less ready to go, fully financed and detailed, and were therefore deliverable within a very short period of time. There was very few authorities in Wales who had oven-ready projects which were capable of being delivered within that very short period of time. Now, with the levelling up fund, we've been advised that there is funding available of £120,000 that we can put towards our revenue budget to enable us to get expertise in place that we can develop out future projects going forward, because as has been mentioned, the Shared Prosperity Fund will follow the levelling up fund. So we are in the process of designing a structure to help Simon and his colleagues to enable them to pull together fully thought out and costed projects going forward, and make it possible for us to put together timely quality bids so we can secure the best funding arrangements for our constituents going forward. But it's fair to say that the levelling up fund was very restricted, and we know of some authorities who didn't put any schemes in because they just didn't have the time or the level of schemes ready to put forward as part of that proposition. Thank you, Chair.
Nigel, do you have any further questions or comment to make?
Yeah, Chair, I just find it really disappointing. We've only gone for 25% of what we could have qualified for. I mean, perhaps we haven't got the staff, I don't know. But I'm sure some authorities will go for the max and get it. And okay. It just seems it's a wasted opportunity. Our town centres are falling behind, and this was it was a golden opportunity. Look at this. Look at the theatre in the Princess Royal Theatre. When was the last time that investment? It qualified for this. We could have. We could have gone for 40 million surely, and we should be going for the max. I just find it disappointing. Okay. I really do. Okay. And what stakeholders? I find it disappointing. We went for 25% of what we could have applied for.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Okay, before I move on to the next member, I think, is it Karen or Nicola?
Yeah, Chair, if I can just come in terms of what Councillor Hunter said there, and I think, had we been in a position, Councillor Hunt, to have bid for more money, then that's what we would have done. I think what Nicola has quite clearly said is we've got limited capacity within the council. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, and what your officers have done is the very best that they could have done in the timescales. We've had staff working their absolute socks off on this. So I absolutely take your point on board. If we want to prioritise economic development going forward, we are going to need to invest in it. So we've got the capacity to develop a pipeline of projects for our valleys, our towns and everywhere else, and make sure that we are actually doing our very best for our communities. So I do want to make that point, because I think it's an unfair comment to say that we could have bid for more. Theoretically, yes. Practically, our officers have done the best that they could have done.
Okay, thank you. Right, moving on then. Can I ask Councillor Susan Pattison, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. I do have a straightforward question regarding the vehicles amount of money, but before, because of what's been said, I would like to offer a certain amount of sympathy with officers. Not only do you have to jump through hoops from what all 64 councillors want you to achieve for their own individual wards, but then when money is available, you have to also jump through whichever government is giving you that money and make these projects work. And I understand that the time scale for the Levelling Up Fund was such that I think it was designed to put people off, because it was too short notice and they knew that that was what they were doing. So I do have a little bit of sympathy with officers who take flack for not having oven-ready deals. And we have to remember that since 2010, our departments have been going through year-on-year cuts. Officers' time is at a premium. So when we do come to the budget, there are obviously priorities. Chief Exec is perfectly right. There are priorities which we will all have to argue over to settle our budget. But in the meantime, I'm thankful for officers who, as in the previous item about the Pontardawe Arts Centre, worked around the restrictions to give us what we could have from the grants, but then also come back to ask for reserves from the council for things that they couldn't do. And I think that's the most prudent way to go about it. So that said, my question is on the vehicle renewals. Could I just have a bit of confirmation that these are lower carbon vehicles, that we are going to be lowering our carbon emissions?
Shall I come in and answer that, Chair? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. We've got a vehicle renewal programme, as is indicated in the report, where a vehicle and a piece of plant has a certain shelf life. As part of our decarbonisation and renewable, or DARE strategy, we are looking to move to low emission vehicles, and we're currently looking at both electric and potentially hydrogen vehicles going forward, because of the differences in terms of the duration of travel associated with each energy source. So most definitely we are looking at those types of vehicles, but unfortunately they're a little bit more expensive.
Well, I'm heartened to hear that, so thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Steve Hunt next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies in advance. I do have a number of questions. They come from my constituents and businesses, so they need to be asked. They're not directly from me. Can I also say, firstly, I've spoken to Howell prior to the meeting, so I know there might be repeat answers that he doesn't have to relate. I've listened to his responses to other members, so Howell will be able to probably limit his responses to myself. Firstly, can I just also say that I concur with Councillor Woolcock all that time ago now. And I just wondered, in respect, what happened to the Welsh Government's Talk Valleys Task Force. You know, that was a programme for the valleys, and that's delivered very little also, I believe. But anyway, on to my questions. I need to highlight at the beginning, because some of the questions may relate to what Howell brought forward in a previous cabinet meeting, where he mentioned £12 million was brought back from Welsh Government that we didn't plan for. So that money is now within Neath and Pontardawe Council. So I have to mention that, because some of the questions is in relation to it. So I obviously welcome the report today. It's very important we use our money in a way that supports our constituents across the whole of Neath and Pontardawe Council. And I also support Neath and Pontardawe Council to bring in funding from avenues across the whole of the UK. And it's so important to maximise our efforts as a council. And our officers do a tremendous job in this aspect of work, that's for sure, because it has been mentioned now that you know, they're overworked probably, and Karen said the pandemic hasn't helped. Right, I would like to know from Howell on page 155, the levelling up fund that we previously discussed. It mentions commercial property grant funding, which is internal and external works for both Neath and Talbot. There's a pot of 3 million there. So the question on that one, I'll go through them all, and Howell knows this and he can answer them then. But on there, there's I just wondered the application process for these to bid on the money. How would it work? Would it be first come, first served? And when the money is allocated and all gone, will the process then close? That's the question on that. You mentioned earlier then about the 500,000, 500k for the street scene and engineering, which is going on the 2nd of July, setting out the projects in the reports. We got them in front of us today in the paperwork. There's very little again mentioning for rural and valley wards. I do notice Aslavera Aqueduct is part of a spend, but when recognising this work, is it the officers who identify where certain furnishes are needed or investment laid out in the report? So is it the officers who pick up on that, that particular one? Right, moving on, sorry, Chair, like I said, they're not my questions, so I need to cover them. I obviously welcome the UK Renewal Community Fund of 2.7 million. Again, I would identify the spend to meet the categories laid out in the report. What work will be needed to deliver on the promises and obviously reach the most in need, because it highlights 499 to 522k, 552, sorry, for support to young people and with emotional well-being to re-engage into schools, careers and training. Will the reports be brought back to scrutiny committees, and will any outcomes be monitored on that? Then on the proposal of the investment taken from the reserves, as we all know is outlined in this report, on this, it takes us back to the beginning of my question when I mentioned the 12 million. We're going to borrow £1 million to deliver on the metal box proposal. So I just wondered if we have 12 million, would the borrowing, which would incur interest, be necessary, or could it be spent from money that we would still have? And then on the grants, the small business grants of £20,000 from a pot again of 260,000 to help them move forward and succeed in 2022. How and who are targeted businesses? Or is this again a free-for-all until the money is exhausted? As I believe we need to establish the most in need so that they do not go out of business. So if you can explain that a little bit more, I'd be grateful, Chair. And then finally, I do apologise. When I mentioned 12 million earlier, and it was not expected to form part of our financial plan going forward until it arrived in our bank. I will have alluded to 5 million or so already identified with this extra money. So is it possible for councillors, cabinet leaders and officers to ring fence some of this money rather than spend it for the council tax burden that possibly will come in the budget next year of setting of 2022? Is that a possibility so that we could lower any potential tax rise? I got through it. Apologies once more. I've said it 3 times, but a lot of these questions were not of mine. They have come from constituents and businesses. So thank you, Chair, and Howell has been briefed. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Howell, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and Councillor Hunt. Yes, in terms of the levelling up fund, I think some of the answers has already been given, but yes, the property grant scheme is available if we are successful in the bid. We had to make the submissions over a week ago now into the UK government, and hopefully we will get some clarity towards the end of July, I think, going into August, if I remember rightly. No, Nicola's saying probably later.
Autumn, apparently.
Autumn, sorry.
Sorry.
So in terms of that one, and that £10 million, if we are successful, some of it will be looking to be spent by the summer of next year, but a lot of it to do with the property, commercial property grant is until 2024. So it's over quite a longer period then, more or less 2.5 years or more, Chair. Once we have got the approval on it, we will be able to put the advert out for people to make applications, and they will be able to apply for quite some time for that period. But we will need to ensure that all the spend and everything is done by the end of the period. So it will close earlier, but it won't be open for the whole period till 2024. In terms of the street scene 500,000, yes, they are projects that are being put forward. There are some areas that officers have to deal with in terms of regulations, legislation, etc., and compliance. So some of them are to do with that. Others are where there have been priorities identified in specific areas that need those investments as well. In terms of the UK Renewal Community Fund of 2.7 million, well, that one, if I remember rightly, has to be spent by the end of March 22. So once we get notification of a successful bid, all the partners really need to be ready to invest that money, and there will be a requirement to make assessments on outcomes and report it to various people, including this council, I would suggest, Chair. Moving on to the question around the £1 million borrowing for Metal Box, I think that this is a major capital facility, that we acquired some time ago. I think that the commercial space is critical. Half of it is already being utilised and taken and purchased from us. We have rented out the office block at the front end, and there is interest about converting, using the commercial space, which is in the back, but from a number of businesses as opposed to one, hence the proposal to split it up and make it more suitable for use going forward. My view is that this is a long-term asset that will be with us. If it's rented out, the income stream from that will be used partly to fund the debt charges, and partly will give additional income generation to the council. So I would suggest the best way of actually dealing with this is to actually borrow, fund it over something like 20 years and benefit the council on that, and leave the money in the reserves so that the decision later this year can be taken around how you wish to take things forward around the overall picture. The 260,000 for the grants, I think that in discussions that I've had with colleagues in environment, there are some small businesses that have fallen through the cracks of financial support during COVID, and it would be good if we had the ability of putting some money forward to them. I think that colleagues in business support have got I've already identified some of them, and I think that we will look at bringing something back to members to explain the criteria and the support that's going to be given there, as opposed to I couldn't give it to you now, Councillor. And then the last question was around, yes, this proposal is talking about using £5 million from reserves, and I said, in answer to one of the earlier questions and in the meeting when we considered the budget outturn position, the time to discuss the next strategy is in the autumn, when we have got better understanding on our budget for next year, the overall sustainability of the council going forward will be taken into account, and these reserves, this extra £7 million that have gone into reserves, some of it will be used now, and some of it will be available for further consideration when you look at the budget for next year. So hopefully that answers most of the questions raised by Councillor Hunt, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Howell. Steve, do you wish to come back?
Very briefly, Howell, I don't know how you remembered, you must have been writing fast there and reply. Thank you for that very comprehensive response. Can I just make one little plea? You identified those slipping through the net. This council has been very good on the Resilience Fund and others that we've managed. Can we try to get this information when timescales are tight so that they get across Neath and Talbot Council to all corners of the borough, so that people have the opportunity to process any potential application they have. That's just a little plea. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Steve. Okay, next on my list is Simon Noyle. Councillor Simon Noyle, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question was a spin-off of Councillor Wilcox, and I think Councillor Hunt pinched my question in part of his novel that he read out there. But it's in relation to, sorry, let me find it here again. It's in the question of page 159 in the Valley Communities Impacts. Alvin was asking about the investment set out in this report across the whole of the county borough. My question is specific to the Valley's Task and Finish report that came out, and how this will dovetail in with that report, and if that's been considered at all, how we, the objectives set out in the Valley's Task and Finish group, how any of those can be closed out with the help of this, please. Thanks.
Okay. Howell?
I'm not sure how to respond to that one, Chair. I think the issues here are that we again are trying to make sure that we can use the investment here on activity that we can manage during a COVID pandemic, and we're trying to improve the outcomes for different elements. We're trying to improve it for communities. We're trying to put something in for businesses and employment, and we're trying to put something in for streets and facilities, which are across various communities. So that's the aim here. And then in terms of the valleys, yeah, I think that there needs to be probably a further iteration of the information to come back to members around what has actually been delivered, what areas we can, and the support that is required going forward, and that's clear from the way the questions have come forward today and in the last month or so. So I think that we will be looking at that in further iterations, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Howell. I did see an indication from Alan Llewellyn. Alan, do you still wish to ask a question on this report?
Chair, I put my hand down, to be honest. I was only going to come back in just to reply to the Chief Executive, just to assure. I mean, obviously, I think as all members, we're very much aware of the workload of officers and all the efforts that they make. But we also have to ensure that we have information about all these different funding streams. We're clearly being put at a disadvantage by the way that the Levelling Up Fund and so on is being administered by the UK government, and there's a real political agenda behind that, which I think those of us that are on the political side of the council need to be taking up at all levels, because the situation is not going to improve unless we can really get to grips with that centralising agenda. But I think all the questions that have been asked today are relevant to scrutiny. But you know, we do know how hard all of our staff and officers have been working throughout the whole of this period and continue to do so. What we actually want to see is more support for them. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, the recommendations are on page 160 on the cabinet agenda papers. I need a proposer and a seconder for this to go to cabinet today. Proposer, please.
I propose, Chair.
Seconder.
I'll second, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. So that's gone. Right, there's a slight change to the agenda now. The next item we were supposed to scrutinize is item number 9, recovery, reset and renew. However, Karan needs to leave. She needs to go to another urgent meeting. She'll be back within 30 minutes. So if I can leave this item for later on and move on to item 11, which is the Swansea Bay University Health Board and Neath Talbot County Borough Council joint working papers on the Upper Avon Valley, pages 221 to 246. I did receive an email from local members, both Nicola and Scott Jones, who are in attendance today, and I believe Scott would like to speak on this item. Can I ask officers whether there's anything that you wish to add to the report, please, before I open for questions?
Chair, there's nothing further we would like to add at this stage, but we're more than happy to answer any questions that come from members.
Okay, at this point, then I'll call the local member then. Scott, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I firstly take the opportunity to put on record my concerns that we have a number of structures within the Upper Avon Valley, Cummer particularly, and many, unfortunately, have come to the end of their lifespan, requiring large sums of investment. This council will be very aware that I've strongly advocated the need for investment on a number of structures over the last 13 years or so, along with elected members before me and former Councillor Glyn Rollins, who also lobbied this and other councils for investment into the structures before and after the 1996 local government reorganisation. Ideally, I would have preferred to have seen a report in front of us today advocating that significant investment had been secured to restore the current bridges and structures. At this stage, though, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Mr. David Griffiths, Head of Engineering and Transport, and his department for the continuous and numerous efforts over many of years to try and secure direct funding for these very much important bridges. I've recently met with senior officers within the council and is pleased to say today and confirm that I've received many of answers to many of questions that I've posed to them. I'm sure that many will agree that owing to the severity and deterioration to the current structures and the need to ensure communities between our valley remain linked, other than obtaining the funding required to restore the current bridges, that has proven to be difficult, there is clearly a need for this new transport route to go ahead. And on that basis, I would welcome such investment and opportunity. However, this would, of course, be with the need for consultation and an engagement exercise that would need to be undertaken to ensure full community involvement from the outset. In relation to any new build or relocation, as set out in the joint report, I believe a strategic drive to provide as many services as close to patient homes as possible, as car use within the Upper Avon Valley is low, and there are very poor transport links and active travel links, as highlighted within the report. It's essential that we have long-term sustainability of primary care services and the need to work on a multi-agency basis here within Cummer and the wider valley. Can I also take this opportunity to thank the Chief Executive, the Director of Environment and the Directorate for the work that they put into bringing this proposal forward. Chair, with your indulgence, I have a few questions to ask in addition to what I've already and previously asked, if that's okay. There are 2 questions and possibly a supplementary question.
That's absolutely fine, Scott. Please proceed.
Thank you. Question number 1 is, can I seek assurances from this council that the Cymru White Bridge will remain in place and future continuous efforts will be made to try and secure funding to prevent it falling into any further disrepair? Also, to seek assurances that at a minimum, this particular bridge will remain open, albeit in terms for the usage of pedestrians and cyclists that could link into such active travel initiatives that I referred to earlier. And question number 2, whilst it is appreciated that the Health Board is ultimately responsible for the delivering of such health facilities in this area rather than the council, the report isn't clear on the location in respect of a new build or a relocation. Can you confirm whether it's intended to retain the health facility within the existing ward of Cymru? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, over to you, Nicola.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the White Bridge, as members will see from the report, we've had concerns over a number of bridges in that area for some time, and we've been monitoring them quite intensely. And local members will be aware that we've put mitigation measures in particular in relation to one particular bridge to ensure that it's the stability of the bridge is maintained. Now, the proposal, which is before members today, is to jointly pursue the construction of improved infrastructure in this place to ensure that we maintain transport links to Glencorrwg and Abercragan, and potentially result in the relocation of the health facility to enable the best option to be implemented in terms of the highway infrastructure. Now, what we intend to do is to do a public engagement event with the Health Board and join up the 2 processes. Members will be aware that the Health Board and the Council have to go through certain statutory procedures, and historically we've done them independent of each other. And this process that we're recommending today is that we do things in tandem, jointly, so we can coordinate our efforts to bring about the best solution and to ensure that it is also providing value for money. We've indicated in the report that there is a saving potentially of £1.34 million if we work with the Health Board to secure the best option for highway infrastructure. In terms of the actual infrastructure itself, we are proposing to implement what we are terming as option B, which will result in the potential loss and subsequent relocation of the health facility, and that will result in the construction of a new road bridge linking to Abercragan and to Glencorrwg. In terms of the White Bridge, it is intended to retain that bridge for pedestrians and cyclists only because of the load, the weight limits, which may be problematic in relation to that bridge going forward. But we will also continue to monitor that bridge to ensure that it is safe for those users in the future. So that's the issue in relation to Cymru and the White Bridge. I think you said, did you say about what was your second question? Sorry, I was scribbling things down and.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I was asking really assurances that any new proposed build in terms of a health centre or a relocation would remain within the ward of Cymru.
Okay, right. Obviously, that decision is going to have to be made by the Health Board as opposed to the Council. We have been in discussions with the Health Board. You know, they have confirmed that they do intend to retain a health facility in the Upper Afan Valley. They haven't been able to identify a location as such because that will form part of the process that they need to go through in terms of that engagement with the public and with public bodies such as ourselves. So, you know, we know that there are limits in terms of the number of sites available up in the Afan Valley. You know, we've got drainage problems and we've got topography problems which limit the potential sites available. And no doubt, as we go through this engagement and analysis process with the Health Board, a site will be identified and it will be sort of consulted upon with you.
Thank you. Chair, if I may, just come back in terms of a supplementary question and an observation.
Yes.
I think it's really important, Nicola, if we can, via the local health board, local health authority, seek assurances that such proposed new initiative would come here in the ward of Cummer. Number one, really, I suppose, really in terms of the transport links, the bus services from Cummer to Glencorrog or to Gwynfi currently is every 2 hours. That would make things extremely difficult. The population in the main, the majority of people utilising Cummer Health Centre are living within the Cummer ward. That's not to say that there are patients from Glencorrog and Gwynfi that don't use it, but of course, where land would be feasible for a new build or an alternative relocation, it would make sense, for any new development to be relocated within the Cummer ward, within any of the 5 villages. And if it's okay, the supplementary sort of question really is, we have very limited alternative premises within Cummer and the Afan Valley, and I was just wondering if any consideration has or will be given to such relocation for the health facility within our existing Croesero Community Enterprise Centre. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. If I can come in there. We have been discussing potential opportunities with our colleagues within the Health Board, and the building that you refer to has come up in that conversation. We can see the benefits potentially of co-locating a health facility with the existing community facilities or uses that are operating from the Enterprise Centre, because they would complement each other and build a sort of a cluster of activity for the communities which it serves. So we can certainly see the benefits of that, but we obviously can't predetermine the outcome of the analysis that the Health Board are required to undertake and the engagement that they need to take in the wider community. But yes, we see the benefits of it, and I'm sure others will too. Thank you, Chair.
That's great. Thanks very much, Director. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Scott. Can I ask Councillor Nicola Davis, is there anything that you wish to ask at today's meeting?
No,
as local member?
No, I fully support. Me and Scott have obviously discussed this, and
Okay.
I support his questions fully. So
Brilliant.
thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you, Nicola. Steve?
Yeah, let me take my hand down. Thank you, Chair. I think Scott pretty much covered it all. He's done his work, and he's put a good case there. I think Nicola, in fairness, has answered very honestly and supports some of the aspects of it. And it's going to be a long, drawn-out process, I presume, going forward. I was just wondering on a supplementary in respect to Health Board and the Council as a joint venture. Can you consider any other partners in delivering of, obviously the infrastructure is very poor in that area, and anything that does come forward is going to improve it, no doubt, with modern works today. I just wondered that that adventure park, and I don't know where it is, I don't want to open up another debate, but when there's a huge investment proposed for the area as well, maybe sometimes it's worth talking to partners and so forth. And the last point I'll raise, I think Scott might have covered it, but in the communities like he has, I mean, very similar to many of the Valley communities where the young people leave to find work, we are left with the elderly. The transport links to any particular health centre or doctors is very difficult wherever you are. I mean, I'm lucky to have one in the middle of Seven Sisters, but that even has its problems for the patients. So it's important that that it's in a suitable location, and I'm sure Nicola on this council and the partners will make every effort to achieve that. But that's just a couple of points I wanted to raise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Do you want me?
Right.
Do you want me
Yes.
to come back, Chair? Yeah, in terms of other partners, obviously at the moment we are concentrating on securing the funding to deliver the essential infrastructure, which is the highway infrastructure, as well as the health facilities. So at the moment, that's where we're concentrating our efforts, because what we shouldn't forget is that we haven't secured the funding for this yet. All we've secured is funding for the preliminary design. We need to apply now for the funding for the detailed design, and then we need to apply for funding to actually build that, and the health board will have to apply for funding to relocate their facilities and get them up and running and operational. So that is where we are concentrating our efforts on at the moment, because that funding is not yet guaranteed. But what we hope to do is by coordinating our activities and making that funding proposal together to the Welsh Government, that's going to improve our chances of securing that funding. In terms of the Afan Valley Adventure Resort, whilst that has been to planning committee a couple of times in the past, we haven't yet signed the legal agreement which will enable us to issue the decision notice. Now we are having fairly regular discussions with the developers on that, and they have new funding partners potentially in place. They haven't finalised that yet, but when we have further updates on that, we will be taking a report back to our planning committee. But it's very, very early stages yet, because as you'll appreciate, the Afan Valley Adventure Resort is an outline scheme yet, and should that scheme be granted, we would then need to go through the reserve matters stage. But there is a commitment from that developer to work with the community, and they would propose to link up to that community in terms of access to jobs and active travel and so on. So that we've had those early discussions, but it's a little bit too premature to go into that detailed partnership discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nicola. Okay, the recommendations are on page 229 to 230. This report is going to Cabinet today for decision. So can I get a
Chair?
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. I can see some hands up. I'm not sure if you can see them on your screen.
No, I can't.
Councillor Sean Percy and Councillor Sandra Miller.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why can I see the hands? No idea. So who did you say? Sorry.
Councillor Sean Percy and Councillor Sandra Miller.
Sean Percy and Sandra Miller. Okay, I'm awfully sorry. Can I ask Sean then, please, first?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Chair. And obviously, I'm not a member of the Cabinet Scrutiny Committee, but members will know that bridges, active travel, and sort of heritage is sort of my three main interests at the minute. So I felt a bit strange not to say anything on this topic. So it's quite interesting seeing the designs of this, and obviously I'll leave the preference of the options for the local members and the community to sort of pass comment on. But I wanted to pick up on one of the things Scott mentioned about the White Bridge. And of course, I can see it's proposed to be left open for pedestrians and cyclists, and the current active travel layout proposed on the Plan B looks quite good as well. I kind of wanted to point out, of course, we've had a similar bridge and structure in Sandfields East. I can see Ted smiling there. But we had a similar situation where the bridge was closed for vehicular traffic for a very, very long time, open to pedestrians and cyclists, and in time, after much monitoring, was closed due to safety concerns. And I just kind of wanted to flag up really and reinforce what Scott has said, that aside from this being an iconic bridge in Cymru, this is a listed structure as well. I think it forms a really important part of the heritage we've got in the valleys and in the county as a whole. And as much as bridges may not appeal to everyone, I'd certainly go somewhere to visit a good bridge. We do need to consider the longer term plans for these listed structures. I think it is important that we don't consider them redundant. We consider them A, important part of our heritage landscape, and B, where there's active travel routes routed over them, they're important parts of the active travel infrastructure too. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce that point. I know further down the valley, we spent quite a bit of money on the aqueduct in Pontardawe, which obviously is not used for vehicular traffic. And it is similar in being a listed structure of historic importance, but I felt I needed to just reinforce that point today, because I think there's more work for us to be done in terms of making a plan and identifying funding to look after these important historic assets in the county. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Sean. Sandra, please, next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very heartened to hear that it's a joint engagement with the health board. By their very nature, they've not been brilliant at coming to the support of health facilities up in the valley. They tend to give way too quickly, as far as I can recall, because there have been a number of facilities up there, and because they can't get the medical staff to actually deal with them, they walked away from them. So I'm glad that this authority is there and it will be pushing them, because we can't afford to lose this health facility up there. Equally, we have to keep our structures up there because they are iconic settings. So I'm really pleased to see that joint engagement involved, because I know I was involved with a number of the health facilities up there in my trade union role many moons ago, and it was like walking through treacle to get them to actually say that they support the people of the area. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Sandra. Right, before we go recommendation, apologies for my ignorance, Scott, but why is it called White Bridge? Any reason?
The honest answer, I don't know, Saif. Maybe Sean, maybe best place to answer that one.
Okay, no problem. Sean, I'll speak to you outside the meeting then.
Can you leave us know, Sean?
David Griffiths might know.
Okay,
I
then.
can chip in now, but it's not. It's nothing exciting.
Okay, go on, Sean.
Well, when the bridge was new, it's rendered concrete, so it looked very white and bright, and that was it. Compared to the stone bridges that were in existence. So it's not no complicated answer there. So
that's okay. David.
No, I was just going to lower my hand there. I had heard as well that there were white gates in the proximity of the bridge as well, and it's also been known as White Gates Bridge in the past, so I'm told. So that's all, Chair.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, take two then. Recommendation are on page 229 to 230. This report is going to Cabinet today for decision. I need a proposer and a seconder, please.
Chair.
Thank you, Dennis. Seconder, please.
I seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, the next item then, which is item number 12, the Race Equality Action Plan for Wales consultation draft response. This is on page 247 to 260 on the Cabinet agenda. I'll go straight to questions because the report itself is quite comprehensive. Councillor Susan Paddison, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, it's on, excuse me, on the response letter, on page 254, the education paragraph. It doesn't go into very much detail, but I just wondered if the education officers could answer. Is there such a thing as a BAME governor in every school? And if there isn't, it might be an idea, because then there would be an emphasis on governors to bring this to the attention of the agendas that are going on in schools. So that's basically my question.
Yeah, Chair, I can pick that up. Certainly, not to my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure there isn't, as we've got designated governors for child protection, that sort of stuff. No, I don't believe we do have a designated governor for BAME, but obviously the Act does require us to certainly raise this agenda with schools, including governors, particularly in terms of training.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's a development in the future, who knows? But there's no requirement at the moment that I'm certainly aware of. And I did speak to Mr. John Burge before this call, and just to get an idea about the training that goes on. And there was some training last year. We brought in an outside agency, the show races and the red card. The external training went really well, really positive feedback. But I'm not aware, Suzanne, of any requirement to have a governor designated for BAME currently.
Oh, thank you very much. But it may be an idea for head teachers or chairs of governors to sort of raise it with their boards under no obligation, but to just suggest that somebody might want to take ownership of it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Suzanne.
Yeah, very good point, Suzanne. Anybody else on this report? Okay, no, right. Recommendation are on page 240. Can I get a proposer and a seconder, please, for this to go to cabinet?
I move, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
A second, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. Right, Karen is back now. So what I'll do is then I'll go back to item number 9, which is recover, reset, and renew. And then we'll move on to the final item, which is item number 13 on the cabinet agenda, the members' community fund. So Karen, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for taking the item in a different order on the agenda. We are subject of a safeguarding inspection at the moment, so there's been a number of people all week being drawn into that, and my slot unfortunately was at 4 o'clock and I couldn't move it. So I do apologise that I disrupted the meeting. All I've tried to do, Chair, in this report is to try and give an overview for members about what happened in the first wave of COVID, what's been happening as we've worked through the second wave of COVID, but also to start to think about how we would approach our recovery. So I hope that the report is useful to members and just kind of brings together, I suppose, what's been happening over the last 15 months into one place. What we're proposing to do is to undertake an engagement exercise with our communities over the summer into the autumn, because all of the evidence around recovery planning would suggest it's really important to get a kind of real engagement and input into your recovery planning process. So I've given a bit of an outline in the appendices as to how we would look to approach that, and to ask members of the Cabinet later on to endorse that and to give us the authority to take that work forward. I've also mentioned the opportunity for having a peer assessment. We were hoping to have been able to organise it for the beginning of the process, but unfortunately the Local Government Association hasn't been able to arrange the peer assessors until the early autumn, but it'll be at a milestone point in the overall recovery planning anyway, so it's still worth doing from our point of view. And the other thing I would say, Chair, before you want to no doubt open it up for questions, is quite a lot of what's in here has been discussed in the member panel as well, and there's a meeting in the morning where I've got no doubt the members will want to get into a bit more detail around the way we'll actually do the engagement, but we'd very much welcome any further suggestions from members so that we can get as many views on board as possible during the next couple of months. So as I say, it was designed, Chair, just to give us a bit of a position statement about where we've been, where we've arrived at, and what we think we need to be doing next as we plot a pathway into recovery.
Thank you, Karen. Can I call Councillor Alan Llewellyn, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I did submit questions in advance. I'll leave one of them until tomorrow's panel. It's been a long meeting. I'd just like to ask a general question. Although the focus is on pandemic recovery and a hugely significant period of time, many of our communities have suffered years of underinvestment through austerity. Is it accepted that for the engagement to be meaningful, residents are likely to refer to a whole range of improvement and regeneration that is needed, not only pandemic recovery?
Thank you, Councillor Llewellyn. I think the questions that we are looking to ask would most definitely give people the opportunity to talk about what matters to them, not just in terms of the pandemic. I think it's important that we take the time to check that we've understood how the pandemic is impacting, because we're still learning about that. As I said earlier in the meeting, we're starting now to see demand coming through the social care system that we haven't seen up until now. And certainly now that children are back in school, the head teachers and teachers are getting a much richer picture about the impact on our children and young people. So the intent is to understand how the pandemic has impacted as a specific, but very much to ask our population what matters to them right now, but what matters to them as they look into the future as well, and what ideas they've got about how we can build on some of the fantastic collaboration that we've seen over the last 15 months or so. So I would expect it would comment on things the council's got a responsibility for, but I'm hoping the Borough will also do as well. It'll comment on things that other agencies are responsible for, or what people feel that they can do for themselves. So we should get a really rich insight from it. And I do think the members' role is quite key as well as we get the engagement underway, because we'll be looking for you to help us in making sure as many people as possible contribute into this exercise.
Okay.
Thank you, thanks.
No problem. Steve, please.
Yeah, just very briefly, I think Karen answered my question at the very end. I wanted to know how the engagement process is going to go out to the communities. I know you mentioned using ourselves, but we obviously need to try and engage with as many as possible to have the results and the answers to what they need. Or are you going in more detail tomorrow with this, Karen? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. We were going to go into it in more detail tomorrow in the panel, but I think it might be really useful as well, depending on what the panel think, if we put a member seminar on during July as well to share that detail with all members of council. Because I know when I did the member seminar going back about 6 weeks ago now, there were some suggestions there about tapping into the community groups that have set up during the pandemic period. And that's most definitely something we've taken on board. We've got our youth service involved, we've got our local area coordinators involved, a whole range of people. But I think, you know your communities best, don't you? And any other ideas that you've got that we can use, the more the better as far as I'm concerned. So I think we go into it in more detail tomorrow, but it's not a done deal. And I think perhaps we do a member seminar, perhaps around about mid-July. They'll give other members of council then to have the detail of the plan and to have an opportunity not just to support it, but to see if there's any other ideas that perhaps we've missed.
Okay, thank you. The recommendations are on page 176. Can I get a proposal and a second for this report to go to Cabinet, please?
I propose, Chair.
Seconder, please. Thank you very much. Okay, the final item which we are scrutinizing that is item number 13, the Members Community Fund. I'm going to go straight to questions. So can I first call up Councillor Simon Noel, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a good thing. The Members Fund in the first round was very good. And I love a good grant myself. We've got loads up here in Neath that we've made use of over the last couple of years. My question is in relation to the detail, though. Scheme number 1 started or commenced on the 14th of the 6th, 2018, as we told in the report, and was completed by the 31st of March 2020, approximately 21 months. We're told that this scheme is going to start on the 1st of July 2021 and be complete by 14th of February 22 because of PERDA. I make that around 8 months. Looking to protect officers, and I must say here at this point that the awfully good work that Paul and Eloise do and have supported me in Neath tremendously over the last 4 years, myself as a councillor, and before that, and other things as well. I'm wondering how on earth we are going to deliver this in such a short period when the first phase took 21 months and this one's due to take 8 months, please.
Okay, Paul, are you going to answer this?
I'll try my best, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Difficult. There is no way that it can succeed the way it did in the first tranche, because you're pretty much asking for a programme to be delivered in 1/3 of the time. You may not have heard the good news as well, but Eloise is expecting. So with everything, I might be a ship alone. We'll see. That's all I can say really in response to Councillor Noyle's observation, is that we can't handhold and coach to the extent that we did perhaps in tranche 1, because we will have to just work with fully detailed, well thought through applications, and there won't be, shall we say, the nursing or the coaching that there was in tranche 1, because of course Eloise and I got the day job as well, And Councillor Noyle has always made reference to renewable energy funds that are peculiar to certain parts of the county. And Nicola will be aware that we manage those as well, on top of the day job. So it'll be what it'll be, I think. We'll try and do what we can with it. And without extending the winter here, what I will say is that you remember last time round, we developed among 64 councillors, 135 projects. I prided myself on getting 99% of the members' fund out the door. But more so, I took a lot of pride in match funding the members' fund, because the 640,000 in the members' fund attracted £688,541.65 worth of match funding. And all of the councillors out there, I think, will be very familiar with efforts that were made to add value to their pot. And by the time we finished the members' fund for Howell, we'd actually invested £1,302,688 in Neath Talbot. And that was won by a bit of cunning and a bit of, well, doing my day job, really. So I think it'll be what it'll be, Councillor Noyle. You know, it's we'll do what we can, but I don't think it'll be the resounding success it was in the first tranche, because I've got 1/3 of the time to deliver the same.
Okay. Simon, do you wish to come back?
No, not really. So I think Paul said it all there, and I didn't ask my question to preempt that, but you can hear the good work that Paul does. Him and Eloise are an excellent, and I'm just concerned that you know, that they won't, not that they won't be paying due attention to all of this, but the fact that will we get it all done? That was my question, and learning that Eloise is obviously expecting as well. I think perhaps we, as members, we should ask for something a bit more to be looked into this, where there's any support to being given to Paul with extra members of staff and the like as well, if we're going to deliver it. Thanks.
Okay, excellent, good point. Well, Simon, if you don't spend your share of the pot of the money, you know, Talbot Ward more than happy to take on that from you. So that option is still there. Steve,
I'll
please.
be spending mine, so thank you very much.
Yeah, all right, okay, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I concur with what Simon has said, and I know how hard Louise and Paul has worked. I don't know. I thought I seen somewhere in some of our reports that community benefit team were going to have an extra member of staff somewhere. I may have dreamt it, but that's what I thought. But putting that aside, I just want to dig down on what's the process then. Last time, if we didn't deliver, it would go back into the council pot, if I'm not mistaken. So if members don't deliver this, because there's an election, obviously, and some of us might not even be here. So if the money isn't spent in that 8 months, does it mean it goes back into the pot, or is there a bit of leeway where it'll roll over? Bearing in mind, if it rolls over a lot longer, it'll be going into maybe a new councillor. So if that new councillor didn't like what was the previous councillor had put in, would, you know, how complicated could it be? And have we got any answers for the sort of questions I'm asking, really? Thank you.
Can I just respond to part of that, and maybe Chief Exec and Howell can respond to the rest of it? What we've said really is that if a councillor was able to provide a fully detailed application which was worthy of going to Cabinet for approval this side of Purda, we would take that bid forward, and if it were approved, we would honour it. Irrespective of what happens afterwards, any prior commitment would be honoured. The unspent money, I think I'll leave that to Howell. And what happens post-election, I think I'll leave that to Karen.
Okay. Howell and Karen?
Yeah, Chair, in terms of the proposal, the commitment is done by the end of, or before Purda this year, so before the end of this financial year. we know that not everything is going to be delivered and spent by 31st of March, but we're hoping that some will, and hopefully a significant amount will. But it all depends on the project and what's needed to be delivered. But the spend will be this year and next financial year. So the money, the £10,000 per councillor is available and will be available to be spent between now and 31st of March 2023. As opposed to the end of March 2022.
Okay, thank you, Howell. Karen, please.
Just to finish it off then, Chair, from a governance point of view, once the decision has been made by Cabinet to apply the funds to that particular project, it would require another decision to undo it, if you like. So the intent is that the decisions that are made during this round are honoured and delivered for those communities. As far as any unspent monies are concerned, it will stay in the council's balance sheet, and it'll be for the incoming council then to determine its own priorities and whether it wishes to run another scheme of this type or not, but that will be for the new administration to decide. So I think really the message, Chair, is the members obviously are going to want to come up with their own ideas as quickly as possible, so the money is spent on the things that they believe are important for the communities that they represent.
Thank you, Karen. Steve, did you had your hand up?
Yeah, only briefly to come back. As Simon said again, Paul works very hard and we're working in a different way through teams. To get this done as well, we've got to do a substantial amount of forms, as most members will know. This is going to be far more difficult than the first time. And obviously in a lot shorter time. I understand what Karen, Howell and Paul have said, but I just wanted, to have a understanding that the project is there, and if the 10 is spent, how could a member who may not be a member fulfill it? He won't be a member to work with Paul. It gets complicated. That's all I'm trying to get across. Because I could identify, sorry, Chair, the 10 spend with the match funding of another 10, but the new councillor wouldn't perhaps have the idea of the project that I'm working on to deliver it. So it's just a bit complicated. Sorry.
No problem. That's fine. Suzanne Pattison, please.
Thank you, Chair. Try and be brief. With regards to Eloise, I would urge whoever's in control of this to put a relief person in. It just seems ludicrous that he's going to have to work on his own at a time when members have just been given monies to allocate, and for him to be working on his own for the reason that his colleague is expecting on maternity leave. I would urge the council and the leader to sort of look into that. And also on a question of, we've been told since we are elected, if you have any difficulties with any administration of any kind, even IT, whatever, Democratic Services or whatever, somebody within the council officers would help members. It just seems that on this occasion, we're being told no. Is that correct?
I think, Councillor Pattison, that when we realised the guardrails in Purcell Avenue and the Good Neighbour scheme with Neath Talbot H Connects, some of the proposals came to be in a lot easier. We were able to work with colleagues in highways to realise the guardrails, and that came together reasonably quickly. The Good Neighbour scheme was something that was scripted largely by NPTH Connects. So some of those applications.
I wasn't particularly mentioning any particular project. No. I was thinking of councillors in general, always being urged from day one that whatever administrative support they required from the council would be provided. And I'm just saying that on this occasion, it doesn't seem to be correct.
Well, I will give assistance. Obviously, the application form as of today hopefully will become available to you with the guidance notes. and then you complete that, and then we check it for credibility and accuracy and so forth, and advise then on how best to put some flesh on the bones, perhaps. But appreciate with 1/3 of the time and 1/2 of the workforce, maybe we won't be developing the 135 projects. Yeah.
And I, with your indulgence, Chair, I'm not putting any pressure on you, Paul. I think my urgings were to powers that be that, you know, if we are able to match fund, and the match funding brought in a lot more money for the council, that, you know, additional staff would be helpful in this occasion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Nigel, finally.
Thank you, Chair. And I concur with Councillor Patterson on this. I think that it would be prudent to have an additional staff here to see this project through. But I want to ask a quick question to Paul, actually. And thanks, Paul, for all the work you did for us in the last tranche. Would it be prudent for us, or would it be beneficial for you if we were to expand on projects from the first round, or even to repeat the projects? Would that be easier for you?
Yeah, on that, Councillor Hunt, I think the guidance note suggests that something that was a resounding success in tranche 1, if you wanted to perpetuate that, as long as the outcomes as intended were achieved and it was a good investment, let's not mend it if it's not broke. Yeah, we can extend it, enhance it, augment it. Obviously, we'd look for something slightly different, perhaps, but if the concept was a good one, there are some cracking examples of how the money was used last time round, and perhaps some of the preamble and some of the spade work can be taken out because it's already been something that has been grappled with previously.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. There are no further indication on this item, so the recommendation are on page 264. Again, this is going to Cabinet for decision. Can I get a proposer and a seconder, please?
I propose, Chair.
Seconder, please.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Okay, back to the Cabinet scrutiny agenda now. Item number 5, forward work program. These are on page 5 to page 18. Do members have anything to add? No. Okay. So moving on then, as previously mentioned, we have decided not to scrutinize any items on the Cabinet Finance Subcommittee agenda. Therefore, I would like to thank you all for attending today's meeting, and I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Si.